Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We are back to another life lesson. And today we're talking about the peacekeeper pattern, right? When guilt becomes your identity, when guilt becomes your identity. So we know that this week we are talking about interrupting guilt and internalized expectations, you guys. So here's the thing. Here's what I want to say. Um, this guilt that we're talking about, it's today's title is the peacekeeper pattern, right? When guilt becomes your identity. Listen, you're not responsible for their feelings. You are responsible for your freedom, though. Okay, listen, this lesson really is here to uncover the paradigms of emotional labor. All right. When you overfunction to really maintain peace, to avoid disappointment, this lesson will really help you to explore how guilt shapes your rhythm and offer other patterns, right? Other patterns rooted in peace, not just pressure. Today is Energy Audit Thursday, all right? And we're talking about the peacekeeper pattern. All right, the peacekeeper pattern. Like, are you the peacekeeper, right? When guilt becomes your identity. Now, are you the peacekeeper to what? To keep you from feeling guilty, or is it motivated by guilt? All right. So have you been holding your breath just to keep the room calm, right? Saying less, giving more, and holding it all together so no one else has to feel uncomfortable, right? Are you serving as someone else's emotional bodyguard? All right. Listen, this is not peacekeeping. It is a form of performance, okay? And it can get exhausting. All right. Listen, today's life lesson really reveals the invisible cost of emotional labor, right? Why guilt taught you to shrink for other people's comfort, and how to really break that pattern and reclaim peace, right? Reclaim the peace that includes you, all right? Because remember, creating peace and you're not included in that peace, it's not really peace. Okay, it's not really peace. So when you have been the peacekeeper, and where have you been the peacekeeper? um, instead of the truth teller. All right. Where in your life are you the peacekeeper instead of the truth teller? Have you held your tongue, right, to avoid conflict? Do you say yes, right, to something that made you resentful, right? And do have you taken the emotional weight that what really wasn't yours? All right. Listen, what if the way you keep the peace is actually how you've been taught to disappear? What if the way you keep the peace is how you've been taught to shrink? What if the way you keep the peace has taught you that your voice doesn't matter, your opinions doesn't matter, and your thoughts doesn't matter? So why am I doing this session? Because I've lived inside the peacekeeping role, right? I have clients who live inside the peacekeeping role. Listen, silencing my truth, right? Or silencing the truth, over giving and staying quiet to avoid disappointment, right? That is a peacekeeping role that some of us have been handed, right? That ain't even something you raise your hand for. All right. So I know what it feels like to confuse emotional labor with love. And I want to help you free yourself from this guilt disguised loyalty. All right. From this guilt disguised loyalty. I'm very familiar with this role, right? I work with a lot of individuals in my coaching practice, right? A lot of business owners, right, who are taking on a lot, right? A lot of people in corporate America who are just trying to be the peacekeeper. And guess what? They're tired, right? They're tired, right? So here's the disclaimer: your awareness in action. This session isn't about keeping you, this session isn't about making you feel bad for carrying too much. Right? It's not here to make you feel bad. It's all about helping you see the patterns that guilt creates and inviting you to choose peace that doesn't require you to silence. All right. So peace doesn't mean be quiet. And I know, right? I know, right, that you've been taught that, like, even in your house when you was younger, like, I need peace. So go to your room, be quiet. Everybody be quiet, right? Sit down, shut up, right? So it's this kind of mindset that we taught that peace equals silencing yourself, right? But silence is a way, especially if silence isn't aligned with your truth. Now, is there some conflicts in our life that we just don't have the time to address? And being silent is the most, healthiest way to address that? Absolutely, right? But most of us are not in silence because it's the healthier decision. A lot of us are going into silence or guilt into silence, or it's just a role, right, for our nervous system, and it's more of a survival thing. All right. So, again, this lesson isn't about making you feel bad for carrying too much. It's about helping you see the patterns that guilt created and inviting you to choose peace that does not require your silence. All right. So, good afternoon. It is Energy Audit Thursday. Let's take our deep breath. Right. This is your time. No pressure, just your presence. Right. I want to welcome you back to Life Lessons with Dr. Sheila Little, licensed clinical therapist, right, for the last 20 years, the creator of the Stop and Now method, and the creator of Project Life, right? Life Lessons is a part of Project Life. Project Life, or Project Life, yeah, is an initiative where we turn theory into practice. So drop a word in the chat. Let me know how you're feeling on today. As we go into this conversation, the peacemaker, right? Are you the peacekeeper, right? When guilt becomes your identity, right? So this whole week we're talking about really interrupting the guilt, right? In these internalized expectations that we have been taught for so long. So before we get into that, just feel your feet on the floor, kind of scan your body, right? Feeling your butt on the seat, or your legs just standing up your spine, right? Just bringing some compassion and love to your body on today. All right. Feeling activating our shoulders, right? Getting that weight off of them, down our arms, activating our hands, up our face, right? Right. Just kind of getting present, right? The space around us, taking a deep breath in, just saying, I love you, right? And breathing in our truth, right? So much of truth is hidden, and it can be a cultural thing, right? Where, don't talk about what goes on in this house stays in this house, which what indirectly taught you to keep secrets, right? But sometimes, and not even, but and sometimes those secrets is where we need to heal, because those secrets have silently created, right, a thought process in us where, my truth isn't important, right? My truth isn't important. And a lot of us are dealing with a lot of dis-ease, and that dis-ease is truly because we're not living our truth. Now, you may not know what your truth is, okay? You may not know what it is, but you know what you're doing right now ain't it, okay? It ain't it. So if what you're doing right now ain't it, then we can stop that, right? And then go and I'm encouraging people just to go on a discovery of what your truth is, right? Right. What is your truth? Because that part of you still probably needs to be cultivated, probably needs to be watered, it needs to be investigated, right? And you don't have to know, right? You don't have to know the fullness of your truth, but we do need to move you in the direction of your truth, right? So that we can release some of this weight emotionally, physically, mentally, and otherwise that you're carrying, that's truly causing you to feel tired, disconnected, right? Emotionally separated, right? And so hopefully this conversation on today, on this Energy Audit Thursday, you're going to be able to audit your energy, right? Audit your energy for a little bit. And I just don't know what's been happening to my computer, y'all. Like, I've audited your energy and be able to move forward. All right. So my computer is messing up again. I didn't come on yesterday because my computer was messing up, but now it's doing it again. I just think that this is a powerful conversation, right? And I think that that's what's happening. Let me log out and log back in. Y'all give me a minute. Okay, so it allowed me to come back in. All right. So who is this session for? All right, let me open up my other windows. Who is this session for today? While I open up these windows, thank you guys for your patience. I just feel like maybe this is like a good conversation. I do work with a lot of people that deal with a lot of guilt. And I always say, like you set an intention, something's gonna happen. So I'm going to actually put a lot of the streaming part, I'm gonna put it on a different screens because maybe it's a lot streaming from that side of the computer. So thank you guys for being patient with me. Okay, so who this session is for today? All right. So this session is for you, or this lesson is for you. If you, where are we in this? I had to pull back up my notes, you guys. So this lesson is for you on today. If you feel guilty when others get upset, okay? Even if it's not your fault, right? If it's for you, if you go silent to avoid conflict, right? It's for you if you're emotional, if you carry emotional weight in every room you enter, and it's for you if you're always holding it together for everyone else. This is huge. And probably a lot of you identify with this. If you're still with me, you identify with this because how many of you feel guilty when you make other people upset? And I'm challenging you in this season of your life. Listen, you're not everybody's emotional bodyguard, right? And so a lot of times what we'll do is we'll try to cope or do something or not say anything because, they ain't going to listen anyway, or they just going to get upset. So I might as well keep it to ourselves. And listen, your loyalty is to you, right? We have to learn to be loyal to ourselves and what's true about us, because a part of that truth telling is kind of like you're watering the seed, right? So every time you tell yourself the truth, it's like, and you live in that truth, it's kind of like you're watering up an aspect of you. All right. And then when you deny that, it's kind of like you're not allowing the seed in you to germinate, right? To really grow because you're not nurturing it. So a part of the truth setting you free is because the truth is a piece of activating, who you are. Okay. And there's going to be some resistance. So the analogy that's coming up is when you plant a seed in dirt, it's surrounded by dirt, right? So when it goes to take roots, I mean, the dirt is pushing back on it. So naturally, some people may push back on your truth, right? It's just the resistance of life. And you have to push through that, right? Or be okay with that. Like, okay, that upset them. All right. They'll be okay, right? Okay, that made them feel away. They'll be okay, right? Because you're not their savior. All right. And if we continue to go around and emotionally coddle people, right, we're doing a disservice to them, but a bigger disservice to ourselves. Now, let's talk about in how things are done, right? So truth telling is not disrespectful, right? My intention is not to be disrespectful, my tone and all of that. It's not meant to be disrespectful, but I do think that how it comes up may not always, be in the most kind way because it's practice, right? So if you never said your truth before, you may be the person to tell your truth and have to get up and walk, walk out the room. I remember the first time, a personal situation where my dad had to sit down and like tell his kids, like, this my daughter, right? So this was his moment to bear his truth about me being his daughter, right? And he was getting some resistance, from a sibling of mine. And he sat there and you could see him, just like everything in him, he just don't really want to deal with the resistance, but he said it, right? He just like, this my daughter, whoever got a problem with it, boom, hit the table, have a problem with it, right? But he get up and he storm out, right? But he did that, right? Because what I understood in that moment, that him bearing that truth to a child that he loved, and he knew he probably disappointed this child, so he had to kind of, you know, probably even, deal with all of the feelings that this child may have about him. And he had to feel all of that to stand in this truth that this is my daughter. And no matter what you think about that, like I'm going to say it, right? And so that was a lot for him. And so when he said it, like I said, he just got up and left, right? There wasn't no conversation after that. It was just this is what it is. And so sometimes the truth may come up like that, right? But that was so liberating for him because one, it was something that I probably felt like he would never have to do, and he did it, right? But it took a lot of energy and a lot of emotions for him to garnish up the courage to, stand in this truth, right? So I'm giving you an example that sometimes truth doesn't always, it's not like this pretty thing that's dressed up in, gold and silver and like, oh, I'm going to sit down and I have something to tell you, and the person just going to be like, okay, right? Like you may make some people upset. So again, this session is for you if you feel guilt when you upset others, even when it's not your fault, right? When you silence, right? When you go silence to avoid conflict, a lot of us are avoiding conflict, right? So we're not speaking our truth, right? And then if you carry emotional weight in every room you enter, and if you're always holding it together, right? This is for you. All right. Listen, our powerful quote for today: you're not responsible for their feelings. You're responsible for your freedom. Okay. That is the tagline today. That is what's on the screen, right? You are not responsible for their feelings. You are responsible for your feelings. And again, that's at this grown age of an adult, right? When we're younger, you have kids. These are called your dependents. So you are kind of responsible for how they feel, right? That's why being a parent is a lot of emotions because you're holding a space not for you, but just your children too, right? But when we are adults, there's a part of us, that we're just not responsible for other people's feelings because people have their own journey. And remember, feelings is not emotions. So people come to you with their own stories and interpretations, right? I had a friend, and I hadn't heard from him in a couple of days, and he texts me and he's like, hey, I just realized I haven't heard from you in a couple of days. And I was like, yeah, I kind of figured that when I laid down last night, I figured that you had something else that you were focused on or something like that. And I mean, the person got upset, like, now that person's interpretation of what I was saying was like he was out doing some stuff with another woman, but that was not my interpretation. Like that is not what I meant. So at some point I had to separate like how you're feeling about what I said from what I said. No, I said that your focus was somewhere else. It had to be somewhere else, right? You wasn't calling me, whatever that focus was. It wasn't on me, right? That's why I haven't heard from you. And I'm okay with that, right? But the interpretation of what I said put him in a feeling. All right. And I could have, oh, no, no, no. I mean, I'm not responsible for that feeling because that's your story about what I said. And that's not what I said. And we're going to move on with the conversation, right? Because I'm not going to stay here trying to justify something that you feel because of what I said. My truth was your focus was somewhere else. That's okay. You have the right to have your focus wherever you want to have your focus on. It wasn't on me, right? Now, again, he caught a feeling. That's not my responsibility, right? My responsibility is to free myself, right? And to be free. And we can do that in a kind way. And I'm just saying sometimes it's not always pretty and pink, right? Sometimes, it's just not always going to feel good. Sometimes it's not going to feel good to you. Okay. All right. So let's talk about it. We've been taught that peace is keeping quiet, right? Not rocking the boat, absorbing tension so others don't feel it, right? But that kind of peace, guess what? It actually keeps you in prison, right? It's kind of more of an imprisonment than it is a peace. All right. All right. But again, that kind of peace keeps you in prison. It's keeping the peace. If keeping the peace is always costing you your truth, it's not peace, you guys. It's performance. And what is performance? It's just another level of activity that you have to go into, right? To entertain, to support, to in some way ease someone else's emotions, and that's not you. And that's not you. So Pep said, thanks for these time changes. It helps. Oh, no problem, Pep. If you're still on, it did mess up, but thank you. Okay. Okay. So again, we were taught that peace that peace is keeping quiet, not rocking the boat, absorbing tension so that others what don't feel it. But that kind of peace again is prison. It's keeping the peace. If keeping the peace is always costing you a truth, guess what? It's not peace, it's performance. All right. So on Monday or on Tuesday, we talked about the emotional cost of people pleasing. And today we're going to talk about the patterns that it creates. All right. A lifestyle of emotional over responsibility mask as being the strong one, right? So you have taken on the role of the strong one, the savior, right? And again, it's not that you're wearing an S on your chest, the strong one, it's in your behaviors, right? It's in that the kind of conversation that you're having with yourself. Like when you say no, like what comes up for you, that guilt that comes up, or the expectation for you to perform in a certain way because you've been taught to perform that way. And that's all you know. So then now your nervous system is saying, hey, if you don't do this, you're a bad person or whatever. And really calling it out so we can retrain our brain to show up differently. And I want to say this, it's not that the things that you're doing, it's not things that you don't want to do. So we want to help our family. All right. But here's the thing. I want to help you when I want to help you. All right. Okay. I want to support you how I want to support you. And a lot of times we've gotten into situations where people dictate, right, how you help them. People dictate, where you help them at and when you help them. And you just have to find out what that helps looks like from you, because we are servant leaders, right? We were put on this earth to serve, right? To give, right? Because as you give, so shall be given to you. It's just that in doing it the way you were trained to do it is actually taking way more energy, it's creating way more resentment, right? And so in some way we have to go in, deconstruct that, right, disrupt that, and then build it over, right? And build it with from your wise person versus your wounded individual, right? Because in that wound, the help is not really doing what it should do and making the impact it should make. And it's constantly leaving you in that wound, right? In that resentment, in that overworking, in that performative state, versus from your wise person of this is just who you are. You don't owe me anything back for this, right? I have it to give. And so many of us have to really heal the wound to become wise. So then we can probably go back and do the same thing that we've been doing, but we're doing it from a different energy, from a different space. And that is the feeling of peace that we're looking for. All right. All right. So I had a client that once said, I didn't even know what I needed anymore. Right. I've been managing everyone else's emotions for so long. Okay. I didn't even know, or I don't even know what I need anymore. I've been managing everyone else's emotions for so long. Listen, her identity wasn't even hers. It was shaped by guilt, by being a caretaker, in the belief that love, right, keeps things calm. And on that day, guess what she did? She chose herself, right? The day that she called me and was just like, I'm tired. Listen, I'm like, well, what is it that you want? Like, I don't even know what I want anymore. I don't even know, right? I've been managing so many other people's problems, so many other people's emotions for so long that I have lost sight of me. All right. A lot of us don't know, and that's what I'm saying. In that I don't know where I want, it kind of can keep you stuck from going after and being curious again, right? To really figure out what it is that you want, right? To really figure out, well, that's your job, right? To figure out what you want. And if that's going to require you to take your focus off of everyone else for a season or two, right? Till you figure out what it is you want, then it's okay. And we got to give you some compassion, right? To do that, All right. So again, her identity wasn't hers. It was shaped by guilt, being a caretaker, and the belief that love, right, was equal to keeping things calm. All right. And so we had to disrupt that belief, which was very challenging, right? So, you go through a grief process. And one of the things that's coming up, what my desire is to bring some awareness to this healing process, or even the expansion process, right, in you, so that you can be growing as life is growing, that your capacity can be moving and shaping, right? That you are back into relationship with your emotions. And so I don't want to say that this work is hard, quote unquote. It's different though, right? It's different because you're actually participating in your life now, right? You're actively participating, you're thinking, you're on now, right? You're not just going through life, just on autopilot, right? Which is a different level of energy. All right. And so it can seem overwhelming. It can seem like, oh, that's just way too much, or I'll start next, I'll start when the spring come, or I'll start when the fall, or I'm gonna start on the new year. And it's just like, no, start today. Just start today, right? And start to shift and move. And we don't have to fix everything in your life, right? But we can start to say, and start to be honest about where you're at in your emotions and otherwise, right? So that you can start breaking these patterns. Okay. All right, so here's your mirror check-in. I want you to pause and ask yourself, what's one area in your life where you've been working harder to keep things calm than to stay honest? All right, that you've been working harder to keep things calm than just bearing your honesty. All right, listen, this question isn't just about relationships, it's about patterns, you guys. It invites you to reflect on how much energy you've been using to avoid conflict, right? To manage other people's emotions, to really present a stable or unbothered posture, right? Or to perform strengths while to perform strength while feeling unseen, right? Right. This is the moment where you can start to hear yourself again, right? So just ask yourself, what's one area in my life where I've been working harder to keep things calm than just staying honest, right? Just being honest. All right. So here's 5 things that to help you expand this truth is guilt trains your body to brace for disappointment. Life is all about expectation. All right. So what you expect is what you're experiencing in this life, right? And one of the biggest things that we have to switch is this expectation, all right? Because guess what? Guilt actually trains your body to brace for disappointment. All right. So you're not emotionally overextending, you're physically holding it, right? You're physically holding it. You anticipate disappointment like it's inevitable. You walk into rooms already apologize with apology or apologizing on your mind. Okay, you're saying yes with your mouth while your body tightens in protection. All right, listen, this happens because guilt activates your nervous system, right? And the body starts to brace every time honesty feels like a threat to connection. All right, but it's not truth. It's not truth, you guys, right? But it's not truth that hurts people. It's not the truth that hurts people. It's unspoken resentment that eventually explodes on people, right? So let's unpack this for a minute. So a lot of times it's not the truth that hurts people, all right? It is this unspoken resentment that explodes. So over time, right, you've been holding your truth back, holding your truth back, holding your truth back, right? Performing. And then one day you just explode, right? And then it's like, the truth hurted you. No, it wasn't the truth that hurted them. It was the emotions behind the truth. It was the resentment. It was in how you told the truth, right? Because you have been holding that truth back for so long. And now this person is hurt, but it's the emotions behind that, right? It's the feelings behind that is actually was more hurtful than the truth itself. All right. All right. And a lot of us are moving in resentfulness, and then we just blow up one day like, forget. Yes. And then we have like this emotional outburst, right? But that's just years and years and years of holding your truth back. All right. Now, if that's what is required, I'm not saying that that quote unquote shouldn't happen. I'm saying, hey, it's a healthier way to unpack that, right? And if you know you're a person that got a storehouse full of feelings and emotions that you've held back, maybe you should go see a therapist first. Maybe you should go get a coach or something like that can help you to start unpacking that with yourself, because you are responsible for that. All right. Nobody made you do it at this grown age of an adult, right? So you chose, right? Or you allow or you participated, right, in this performative act that you have went through. No matter what your mind is telling you, no, they needed me, no, they would have did this, no, this would have happened. At some point, it still was a choice, right, that you made to continue to hide your truth. So now you're responsible for unpacking that. So the healthy thing to do at this point, if you know that you have a lot stored up, is to go start to talk about it with an objective person like a therapist and a coach so that you can unpack it. So now when you bring it to the people that you say you love, right, you're not going to cause the harm, at least not on your side. Okay. All right. Listen, number two, the strong one is often silently exhausted, right? So you carry everyone else, you show up with a smile, you say it's fine, even when your tank is empty, all right? But who's carrying you? All right, who's carrying you? All right, the strong one narrative feels, noble, right? It feels good, right? Like, oh my God, we're so proud of you keeping the family together. You're such a big sister. You're such a great wife. I don't know how you do it, right? You help everyone else, right? It's just like we're just this servant leader, the sacrificing all of our energy, right? And then we get those little crumbs where people do acknowledge it. But is it really fulfilling? All right, listen, again, a strong one narrative feels noble, but if it's rooted in survival beliefs that you can't fall apart or everything around you will collapse, then that is not strength. That is an emotional prison. And I literally, again, work with people that have this belief that, like, if I'm not this person and if I'm not carrying everybody's weight and problems, like, everything will just collapse. Like, I don't know how we're going to make it. I don't know how life is going to happen. Listen, you were never meant to be the emotional manager or the emotional bodyguard for everyone else's peace. That is not the goal. All right. Now, you may have been taught that. You may have seen your mama do it. You may have seen your grandmama do it. You might have saw your great grandmama do it, right? You may have seen your grandfather hold it all together, right? And have his little drink at the, in the back room, or go to work and come home and get drunk, but he holding everybody together with his paycheck, whatever that is. I want you to know that it's not your job to be everyone else's peace. All right. All right. You're not their emotional manager. Number three, peace built on self-abandonment is not sustainable. All right. This is what this all boils down to. Are you self-abandoning yourself? Okay. If peace only exists in your silence, in your visibility, or in your overfunction, and again, it's not peace, it's a power imbalance. All right. You may feel calm in a moment, but long term, you're building resentment, you're building burnout, and you're building disconnection from your authentic self. All right. Real peace doesn't ask you to shrink, it invites you to show up fully. Again, so I'm using language like, it doesn't ask you to shrink, it invites you to show up fully. What does that look like, though? That just looks like your yes being yes and your no being no, right? Real peace doesn't ask you to shrink. All right. So if you can just go in your house and or your friends or your community that's dependent on you, if they call you today, all right, and they say, sis, or bro, man, and you can honestly say, you know what? I don't. And they like, oh man, thanks anyway. I'll get back with you. How was your day? My day was good. All right. Y'all can go and move on the conversation. Okay. Right. But if they ask you and you feel like some angst about, like, should I give it to them? Do I have to give it to them? Like, it's a whole turmoil that's happening you inside of you about saying no to this person, or you're saying to yourself, like, if I say no, who they gonna get to give it to them? If I don't watch the baby, where the baby gonna be at? If I don't do this, right? This is how you know that you're shrinking, because you really don't want to do it, but you're rationalizing why you should, right? And you're actually making yourself their savior, because if you don't do it, if you don't give them the money, if you don't hold that space for them, if you don't provide the solution to that problem, then in some way the problem is not going to get solved. And that's kind of tampering on, like, okay, so now you are being their savior. All right, listen, again, real peace doesn't ask you to shrink, it invites you to show up fully. All right, and sometimes your full self is a full no. I don't have it. Right? I don't have it to give. All right. All right. Number four, emotional labor is not your destiny. It's your learned defense mechanism. All right, listen, you wasn't born managing people's feelings. You learned that. So you learn to avoid conflict. You learn to keep love. You learn to stay safe. But now it's time to really unlearn that, right? Emotional labor is not your identity. It's a conditioned pattern that can be interrupted. Like I always say, listen, you're not broken. You are patterned, right? You are patterned. Maybe you're the oldest child, right? And you had to learn how to take care of the family. Maybe your family grew up, maybe you grew up in a crime-ridden, poverty-ridden environment, right? But you was a smart one, so you went out and got the job, and so your finances is what held everything together, right? Maybe you are the responsible one. Maybe your siblings ducked off and got on drugs or something like that, so you are the healthy uncle or the healthy auntie, right? Maybe you are the grandmother who your kids, they just didn't get it right, so you do have to take care of the grandkids, right? So the conditions in which you're performing is not so much the issue, more than the why. At this point, why am I doing this? All right, know that there was a learned process in you in shaping your mind to be this person, to avoid conflict, to keep love, and to stay safe. All right, that was a learned behavior, and maybe now you just need to talk about that, right? Because your truth is that you might not want to be doing this. Now, some of the things that we are caught up in, like I know a lady who had to get her grandkids, right? Because the mother just wasn't doing the right thing, right? Now, the wounded her and the wise her. Am I getting these grandkids because I want them to have a healthy home, right? And I'm going to do whatever I need to do to support them from a wise place? Or the wounded me is, oh my gosh, like I need to get these kids. I really don't want them. And now you're talking about their mom around them, and you're making them feel like they're a burden and all of that. Like, see, now you wounding other people, right? Because now you're in this predicament. So we need to break that pattern and know that it's time to unlearn a lot of the behaviors of this emotional labor, right? Because that emotional labor is not your identity. It's a condition pattern that can be interrupted. Listen, you don't have to earn love by absorbing the weight that isn't yours to carry. All right, that isn't yours to carry. And number 5, the last thing in this section, listen, choosing honesty may create tension, but it also creates freedom. All right. And again, sometimes honesty is, right? It's what to be true for you. And sometimes the most honest thing only right? Like you not convincing everybody of that. But you know your truth. All right, you know your truth. And sometimes we just have to sit there and be with that. All right, listen, yes, when you start telling the truth, people may get uncomfortable, dynamics start to shift in relationships, and you may lose a lot of approval from a lot of people that once was your friends or your family, your homegirl or your homeboy, or even your mate, right? But the other side of that tension is your freedom. All right, that weight lifts that weight lifts off of you. Your nervous system gets an opportunity to breathe, and you start to feel peace that really includes you again. All right. You don't have to explode to be heard, you guys, but you do have to stop whispering your truth behind a smile and faking it until you making it, because a lot of us are sick because of that. We're in our 40s and we're dealing with a whole lot of elements that 60 and 70 and 80-year-olds should be dealing with, not you in this middle age. That used to say 40 is a new 20. You know what I mean? But now it's like 40, like people like, I'm old, I'm old. I'm like, I'm 46. I don't feel 46. Right. But another thing I ain't doing is carrying everybody weight either. Even as a therapist, even as a coach, I'm not carrying everybody's problems. You know what I mean? Like that is your problem. I'm here to help you shape a solution in your life, right? Not be the savior. I'm not your savior. I can give you the tool. I can teach you how to use this tool, right? I can support you and hold a space for you, but that's still your life. So I'm not taking credit for your successes, nor am I taking credit for your failures or anything like that, right? And really unbraiding ourselves from other people's lives so that we can what? We have our own seeds. So to me, it's like an apple tree, right? So the apple was a part of all the apples that came on this tree, right? But the apple drops, right? The apple comes off the tree. The apple has its own seed. the apple, those seeds in that apple has now its own ability to build its own tree, right? To build its own tree. And a lot of times we're not maturing, right, to build our own tree. So then we can bear our own fruits and whatever those gifts is. And once we get to the point where we can give the apple, right, we can give it freely, whatever that apple represents. If it's financially, if it's emotional support, if it's love, right, if it's my presence, right, I have it to give. But a lot of us don't actually have it to give because we haven't separated and planted our own life, right? And allowed the maturing process to happen at this grown age of adult, emotionally, mentally, physically, and otherwise. And we keep moving from codependent relationships to codependent relationships to codependent relationships, playing a victim, blaming everybody else for our nervous system problem. It's like, no, that's your nervous system. And it's hard to break that nervous system, to help that nervous system to feel safe. One of the reasons why it's difficult is because we were built for survival, right? The brain has you have something called your old brain, right? Your old brain is collection of all the life, right? Your grandfather's 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 grandfather's, right? Behaviors, thoughts, and beliefs, right? Is in you. All right. So there's this survival mechanism, which is why we have fight or flight, right? But at some point we have to mature and kind of in a sense, rise above the clouds, learn how to manage our emotions, learn how to live in our capacity, learn how to live in our truth. Similar to when you were a child, you had to learn how to what? Say your ABCs, right? You had to learn how to walk. You had to learn how to talk, right? You had to learn how to write sentences. When you get an adult, you're not exempt from learning, right? When you get an adult, you have to learn how to manage your emotions. You have to learn what your emotions are. You got to learn how to, go with the ebb and flow. You got to learn how to take the wins and the losses, right? It's still lessons that you're learning. They're just different than, math problems and sentences, right? These lessons as a grown age of an adult is experiences, right? And it's really helping us to unfold and unbraid and blossom into the people that we were created to be, so we can bear our apples, right? And so we can get to a right state in our life where we can give and give abundantly, right? But a lot of us is like, I don't got it to give. I only got what's outside of me. And a lot of times we don't have it to give because we're not maturing into a tree that can bear fruit, right? That can bear the thing that we have to give because we've been stunted. We've been stunted and we've been patterned. So you're not broken, you're just patterned. And now it's time to come out that pattern and really start to cultivate a new relationship with yourself, a new relationship with your emotions, right? So you can break this pattern of people pleasing, right? To break this pattern of over functioning for other people and break this pattern of guilt. All right. So again, choosing honesty may create tension, but it also creates freedom. All right. So when you start to tell the truth, people may get uncomfortable, dynamics may shift, and you may lose your approval. All right. But you don't have to explode to be heard. But you do have to stop whispering the truth. All right. So ask yourself again, where in my life am I keeping the peace by keeping quiet? And then speak this out loud. All right. I'm not responsible for everyone else's comfort. I don't hear you say that. Listen, I'm not responsible for everyone else's comfort. I am responsible for my clarity, my peace, and my truth. Now, because we're tribal, and what does tribal mean? Because we grew up in a community, especially as African Americans, it's like, I'm my brother's keeper, I'm my sister's keeper, right? It's very communal, right? So pain tends to be something that we all, resonate with together, right? Scarcity, poverty, right? We all tend to come together and want to experience this collectively. All right. So even sometimes it may feel a little like I'm betraying my community. I'm betraying my family, right? I'm betraying people and I say I'm not responsible for everyone else's comfort, right? But the best way that you can serve as a community advocate, the best way that you can serve as a person in a community is to be your full self. right? To be the person who's matured, to be the apple tree who's mature enough to give the apples because the community needs the apples. So what that means is that they need you to become responsible enough to grow, mature, take roots, grow your trunks, branch out, get healthy in your leaves so that we can harvest your apples. All right. And a lot of us are not doing that. Right. So this statement is not to make you feel like you're betraying your family, or that you're betraying your friends or even yourself. It's for you to acknowledge that, listen, I haven't matured to a space or to a point where I can give, right? Not because I don't have it to give, right? But because my apple hasn't come yet, and I need to go and do what I need to do to take care of my roots, my trunk, my branches, right? So that I can have the season of harvest, and then I can give, and I can give abundantly. And every tree, don't get it twisted, every tree ain't giving apples every season, right? There's a season for the apples. There's a season for the oranges. There's a season for the tomato. You can go to a tomato tree in the winter and it don't have a tomato to give you. Okay. Does that make that tomato tree wrong? Even when Jesus went to the fig tree, right? The reason why he condemned the fig tree wasn't because the fig tree didn't give a fig. It was because it was the season for the fig tree to give, and it didn't give. Okay, all right. So there's going to be seasons just by nature where you're just not going to be able to give, and in those seasons you should be working on yourself, cultivating a relationship with yourself, healing yourself, right? Healing the wound so that you can grow into the wise person that, God ultimately created you to be. Listen, guilt will script your identity if you don't challenge the pattern. All right. Because guilt-based identity leads to performative driven relationships and what emotional depletion. So peace isn't real, right? Peace isn't real if you have to hide to keep it. All right. Peace isn't real if you got to hide to keep it. A client shared with me that when I stopped peacekeeping and started truth telling, my relationships changed, and so did my energy. So did my energy. And studies has also linked people pleasing and emotional suppression. But guess what? Anxiety, codependency, burnout, right? So even studies, listen, people who actually study, people like you and me, said that chronic people pleasing and emotional suppression, you know what emotional suppression is? You not sharing your emotions. You having emotions, but you not being honest about it. You feeling sad. You feeling some emotions, right? But you not really acknowledging them, right? Or maybe they're so far pushed inside of you because at this point you've become numb. Studies show that chronic people pleasing, which is a coping skill, and emotional suppression, guess what? Is linked with anxiety, codependency, and burnout. All right. So if you're tired of keeping the peace at your own expense, maybe it's time to keep yourself. All right. Maybe it's time to keep yourself. Now, again, I'm not telling you not to go back. Okay. I'm not telling you not to go back to the family and give. I do think that there is a season where you can harvest and you can give and you can support. But if you're doing it now from your womb, then it's only crippling your family and yourself. Okay. Right. There's some work to be done in you before you actually go yield your own harvest and to be able to give to other people. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat for me. All right. I think about the story, The Three Little Pigs. I don't know if this even gonna make sense, but that's what's coming up, right? So we have people, I've said this story before. The three little pigs, you had three little pigs. There was a big bad wolf that was chasing them. I always say the big bad wolf in this story is this life, right? Life, right? Life is coming at you. The first little pig, guess what they did? They was like, you know what? I'm just gonna build my house of straw, right? I'm gonna do the quick fix thing. Okay. Guess what? The big bad wolf came, huffed and puffed, and blew that house down, honey. All right. Blew it all the way down. All right. Why? Because he just did a quick fix, right? So then he ran to the second little pig, and the second little pig was like, you know what? I ain't finna do it with straw, because the second little pig realized that the sticks, that the straw wasn't strong enough. So I'm gonna go get me some sticks. All right. So he gets some sticks. He put his house together, right? The first little pig house blew down, ran over to the second little pig house. They in there, huffing and puffed, didn't blow down. Second time though, he huffed and puffed. Guess what? The sticks blew down, right? Why? Because these are the people to me who do a little bit of the work, right? You're not like the first person who just like, I'm gonna do a quick fix, I'm an emotional suppressed, I'm just gonna avoid, I'm a people please, right? But you still kind of doing that. Like you're not in victim paradigm, but you're in duty paradigm. What should I do? How should I do it? I need to, get through this quick, right? I need shelter right now. I need comfort. I need safety like right now. And what that's going to do? Maybe I need to be quiet, right? So that's what the sticks represent, right? So then there was a third little pig. We know what the third little pig built his house with. What? Brick, right? Brick by brick, right? Took longer, right? Took longer to build, a lot more energy, right? Now, the first little pig, the life came, the big bad wolf came, huffed and puffed, blew the house down. Second little pig, life came, huffed and puffed, blew the house down. Guess what those two little pigs ran to? The third pig that they probably laughed at, right? That they probably talked about. That they probably said, why are you building with brick? See, you just think you too much. You always trying to be different. You always trying to, be better than everybody, right? But this third pig has some insight, right? Like, listen, if I'm gonna build it, then I'm gonna build it strong, right? Right. If I'm gonna do it, then I'm gonna do it the right way. And it may take me a long time. Yep. First little pig, you built yours in a day, and it's gonna probably take me a year. But hey, I'm gonna put the work in. Okay. So first little pig house get blew down, second little pig house get blew down. Guess what they run to? The third little pig, right? Right now, the big bad wolf come and huff and puff, honey, and huff and puff some more. And guess what? Huffs and puffs and huffs and puffs, right? Life is blowing and life is moving and life is happening and people are judging and all of that. But guess what happens? The house doesn't fall, right? It doesn't fall. Why? Because a third little pig has some insight, right? I'm going to make the mature decision. Okay. I'm going to build a house that won't fall from the wind, right? From the winds of life, from the emotional things, right? And I'm just encouraging you guys, be a third little pig, right? And being that third pig, like I said, I know that pig has some judgment. You're doing too much. Why you got to get the brick? Why you got to be doing that? Right. But like I said, they'll come. Right. So all these people that you scared of, who saying that you different or you scared to let go of because your truth, right, in some way is offensive to them, they gonna come around because what they're built on is that codependency, needing you, right? Seeing you. So you're going to either elevate their life. Remember, rising tide lift all boats. And like Mary Williamson said, when you allow your light to shine, it gives other people permission to do the same. All right. So as you start to shine your light, other people are like, oh, let me get boundaries. Let me start getting the expectation, right? And at first it's a little offensive because it's like, well, since you getting expectations, here go my expectations. You like the audacity, but okay, I like it, right? Let's go. Let's go. Okay. So now you start to raise the frequency around you and stuff just starts to shift, right? So I encourage you to have the third little pig mindset. That's the reason for this story, right? Because when you become the third little pig, guess what? They come in because life is going to, in some way, affect them. And that is your service. That is your service to your community, right? That is your service to your loved one. And ultimately, that is your service to you because that brick house is what kept everyone safe. Right. And if it's about the nervous system and really getting from, that fight or flight or that emotional disconnect nervous system to a safe and social one, then guess what? You need to start maturing. You need to start maturing and growing. When I'm saying maturing, I ain't talking about like immaturity, like, oh, you acting like a kid. I'm saying maturing in the sense of growing, right? When we see trees, we say that tree is maturing good, right? It's growing, it's healthy, right? And so what we need to do is start to move into a more mature state of mind, a more mature mindset. And if you need help with that, that is what the project is for. Right? Those Thursday sessions is really to help you, to hold you accountable, to get you to talk about some things and to get you to see things a little different. All right. All right. So we know that the P And the stop it framework is for patterns and paradigms. All right. And so this spotlight is really for, again, the peacekeeper patterns when guilt becomes your identity. So these aren't just statements, you guys. These are emotional truths that really dismantle to the identity that guilt has built and really to guide you into honest, aligned living. All right. So number one, guilt creates emotional choreography. All right. So guilt creates emotional choreography. Guilt doesn't just whisper in your head, it choreographs your behavior. Do you know what a choreograph is? Right? It's like, do this and this. And after 1, 2, 3, do that. Right? So guilt is is choreographing your behaviors. It tells us how to move, right? So step in when things get awkward. Apologize when you take up space, right? Smile when you're uncomfortable, right? This is all program. This is guilt now being your choreographer, right? This becomes the emotional dance where you perform calm, kindness, and flexible to avoid what? Disappointment and disconnection. You're not being yourself. Okay, in this dance, you're dancing for someone else's expectation. That's all I need you to know about that. All right. At that point, you're not dancing for yourself. All right. It's not like you're outside dancing in the rain. You're actually dancing for someone else's expectation. Okay. Number two, peacekeeping. That's often survival, not service. All right. Listen, you started the peacekeeping because it felt good. All right. You did it because it felt necessary. All right. You learned to diffuse tension, anticipate others' reactions, and even take emotional responsibility so you won't get what? Get hurt. All right. But just because it kept you safe then, you already know what I'm going to say, it doesn't mean it's serving you today. All right. It did what it was supposed to do. Now you've outlived it. It's ancient. All right. And we need to let it go. All right. Because it's not serving you now. All right. Number three, you learn to manage emotions. You learn to manage emotions before you learn to manage what your own. You learn to manage emotions before you learn to manage your own. So many people were raised to be emotionally aware of everyone else except themselves, right? I know this so very well, right? We had a grandfather. My grandfather was like the man, but he wasn't like the man. He was like the scary man. Okay. So, like, when he came in the door, it was like granddad coming in, everybody like straightened up, right? And we were kids, so we didn't always straighten up. That's why we got whoopings, right? Because he would do stuff or say stuff, and we would just laugh, and then we had to feel his wrath. All right. But we were so much more emotionally aware of his emotions and in his strength and his anger than at that time we was sometimes even of our fears, right? Even of our feelings. Okay. All right. So again, many of us were raised to be emotionally aware of everyone else except ourselves. All right. So we learn how to read the room, okay, soothe the upsetness, and then soften the truth. All right. But we never learn to ask ourselves, what do I feel or what do I need? All right. So when granddad came in mad and hotter than hot like fire, you know, after that, nobody went after we got those whoops. Nobody asked like, okay, how do you feel about that? Like, what do you need? You deserve that because you was just some little bad kids. All right. Right. And so we have to now reprogram ourselves when we get adults. Like, no, you probably didn't get asked, what do you feel and what do you need? But at this grown age of an adult, it is your responsibility to ask yourself now, right? Your emotional intelligence was built for survival, not for connection. All right. And to connect now, then we need to ask these questions. What do you feel and what do you need? All right. Is there anything you need from me? Okay. Right. And personally, right, what do you need? Do you need rest? Right? Do you need somebody to talk to? Do you just need a space? Do you need to scream? Right? What is it that you need? Okay. And what is it that you're feeling? All right. The next thing, the strong one becomes the silent one. Okay. So the role of the strong one often means don't complain. You's too strong to complain. I thought you was the good girl. I thought you was the strong one. So what you complaining for? Don't complain. Don't ask for help. Don't fall apart and don't need anything. I have an aunt. I love her so much. And she was to me like the one who made it, right? She was the one who made it out of our family. She was in the Navy and she did so many great things or whatever. And we have a great relationship now. And when I talk to her, to me, she was the strong one. But when she talked about she would be sick and she wouldn't even call the doctor, right? Like her husband had to make her, kind of go to the hospital and things like that, right? She was truly trained coming from the environment that we grew up in to not complain, to not ask for help, to not fall apart, to not need anything, right? And now she's finally in her 60s, like, listen, I need this, I need that, is speaking her truth, right? Because listen, but strength without vulnerability turns into silence, okay? You're holding everything and no one knows you're breaking on the inside. All right. So you have to stop abandoning yourself and really start to tell your truth, because listen, the real strength is in silence. It's honest self-expression. And you're only human. And we really need to start humanizing humans. You got feelings. All right. You got emotions and you got limitations and you got capacity. All right. And sometimes just the way society is set up, sometimes with our job, with our kids and our responsibilities, but we do still need to know what we need and what we feel and make time for that. And with the same energy and the same level that we making time for everyone else. For everyone else. All right. Number 5, keeping it together often means falling apart in private. All right, listen, you might look composed, you're showing up, you're holding it all, right? You're smiling on camera, but behind the scenes, you're anxious, you're disconnected, you're exhausted. Why? Because you prioritize performance over what? Presence. All right, holding it all together isn't the goal, wholeness is the goal. All right. Holding it all together should never be the goal. Wholeness is the goal. Now, does that mean that fall apart in public? No. But the mere fact that you're holding it all together in public and falling apart in private means that you're focused on what? On the performance, and you're not focused on wholeness. Because if you were focused on wholeness, then there would be no need to kind of, in a sense, fall apart in private, right? Because you would make your time, you would rest. People, I mean, if you know me, I am a rester, honey. I take my midday naps, and I had to learn to be that way, right? With all the noise in my head, even sometimes today when I would go to take a nap, it's like, well, you could be doing this, yeah, but I do need to reset. Like, I need to take a nap, right? And sometimes it's not a nap, sometimes it's meditative, but I need this break. Right. All right. So again, keeping it all together often means falling apart in private. And we just, it's moments where we can fall apart in private, but let's make sure that those moments are truly what they honestly are, falling apart, and not because we're performing in public, right? Or we're prioritizing performance over our own presence. All right. Number 6, emotional labor is inherited until it's interrupted. Listen, your mom did it. Your grandmother did it. Your granddaddy did it. Your daddy did it, right? Your community expected it. So now you just do it, right? You manage, you absorb, you soften, you carry, and no one even questions it because it's the expectation. That's what women do. That's what men do. That's what we do as a family. That's what this job does, right? Because it's what they've always seen, okay? But that ends with who? With you. All right. Just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's faithful. All right. Just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's faithful. You can interrupt what you inherited. All right. I know that this is what everybody do, but maybe it just don't work for you. You know what I mean? Now, this was coming up. Y'all remember the story, the ugly duckling? The ugly duckling, right? So it was this duck, and he was around all, well, it was this swan who was with these ducks or whatever. Never really looked like the ducks, but he started to act like the ducks, right? Because he got lost or whatever. Right. And the ducks called him the ugly duckling because it was actually, this was a swan, but he felt like he was a duck. So he was trying to be a duck. He was quacking like a duck and all of that, but he never really was a duck. So he felt like it was something wrong with him. And then as he matured, okay, because as babies, they all was the same size. He just was a different color because I think the ducks were yellow. No, them chickens. I don't know. But the ducks they were all babies, so they was all the same size. But as the ugly duckling matured, right? There go that maturity thing again, right? As it matured, guess what? It realized it wasn't a duck. It was a swan. All right. This is the power of maturing. Okay. All right. Because as this ugly duckling matured, right, it realized it was different and it went and found its family, which was the other swans, the beautiful that just laid and was just beautiful, right? So all his life, it had been with the wrong animals or whatever. The mom had brought them in. But again, as it matured, it realized it was different. And that's why, again, I encourage you may be the ugly duckling. You look like everybody because as kids, y'all experience the same type of trauma, the same type of poverty, the same type of thing, right? And if you never really let yourself mature, then you will stay kind of in this ugly duckly type of mindset. But if you allow yourself to mature, then you would see that maybe you weren't even a duck. You was a swan. All right. And you get to see that. Or maybe you not the apple tree. Maybe you an orange tree. I don't know. Whatever that difference is in you, you won't really notice it or see it until you mature. That's the point of that story. All right. And so the maturing part is to truly get the help and move from the wounded you to the wise you. All right. So we need to stop it. Right. Stop it now. Okay. All right. Again, saying less doesn't mean that you are maturing, right? So saying yes doesn't mean that you're more mature. Guess what? You're saying less, I'm sorry, doesn't mean that you are more mature. Listen, you've been told that staying silent is wise or strong, but emotional silence isn't always maturity, you guys. It's often suppression. All right. So you're allowed to be kind and clear, loving, and guess what? Loud. Loving and loud. Listen, silence is not a virtue if it costs you your voice. All right. If it's costing you your voice. And number 8, guilt confuses emotional safety with control. Again, just by nature, we're looking for safety. All right. But guilt will confuse emotional safety for control. So you might think if I say the right thing, I won't, I won't be upset. If I stay small, I'll be accepted. And again, you might not be saying that, but you're behaving in a way, right, that shows that this may be the language or the instructions that you're being given, right? Don't say that, say it the right way, right? How do I want to say it? What's the right way to say this, right? So this way may be what's narrating in your mind, right? As the words is coming out. So your behaviors is a demonstration of these type of thoughts, all right? But that's not safety. All right. So again, if you say the right thing, you won't be upset, and if you stay small, you'll be accepted. This is not safety, you guys. It's self-control rooted in fear. You're trying to manage outcomes by controlling your truth. All right. And that's not peace. That's emotional surveillance. All right. True safety comes from being free, to be honest, not perfectly behaved. All right. Number 9, got 2 more. All right, listen, you're allowed to show up honest, not just helpful. All right, you don't have to be the fixer, the encourager, or the wise one every time. You can be real, you can be messy, and you can be unfiltered. All right, honesty is holy, and your healing doesn't require you to be what? Helpful. All right, and then last but not least, real peace includes you too. Okay. Real peace includes you too. All right. If peace requires your silence, your exhaustion, or your disappearance, it's not peace. I'm amazed because I hear people like, oh, you come, be my peace, especially men say this, like, be my peace. So in me being your peace, then that means that I'm silenced. I gotta overwork or do whatever, or just disappear my values, my stuff, right? To appease to become your peace. That just don't even equate. It just don't even add up together, right? Listen, peace isn't about everyone else feeling comfortable while you fall apart on the inside. Real peace is mutual. All right. It's honest and it's whole, and it includes your voice. All right. So if somebody telling you to be my peace, right, and they're requiring you to come in and shut a part of you off or shut a part of you down or dismiss a part of you, then that's a piece that don't include you. So that ain't. So how are you going to offer somebody else peace when it's taking yours? All right. So Listen, these truths really challenge the good girl, good boy, strong woman, strong man, peacekeeper identities that were built from what? From guilt, not truth. All right. They help you to ask, is this really who I am? Or is this who I had to become to stay connected? All right, here's the shift. The shift is from emotional performance to embodied pleasure, from emotional performance to embodied presence, and then from carrying it all to telling the truth. All right. So let's get into our biblical wisdom. If that section hits you, put a heart in the chat for me. All right. If it made sense. All right. So our biblical wisdom. Okay. Again, the pattern keeper. That's today's title. When guilt becomes your identity. These two scriptures, they are deeply aligned with emotional and psychological themes for this lesson. So Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacekeepers, for they shall be called the children of God. Okay. So again, blessed are the peacekeepers, for they should be called the children of God. Listen, the interpretation, God didn't call you to perform peace. He called you to live in it. All right. Real peace doesn't require your emotional disappearance. It requires your presence, you guys. Listen, this verse is misread as blessed are the peacekeepers, but there's a difference. Peacekeepers maintain the status quo. All right. Often at the expense of themselves. Peacemakers, all right, create real restorative peace, even when it disrupts old systems. This is not about being agreeable, it's about anchoring in truth and having the courage to be honest, even when it might create temporary tension. All right. So, God, the God in you isn't asking you to disappear to be divine. That entity, is asking you to embody peace that starts within and flows outward without guilt or presence. So again, um, blessed. I'm so sorry. It's blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. All right. And this verse is often misread as blessed are the peacekeepers. All right. But there's a difference. Peacekeepers maintain the status quo, and peacemakers create real restorative peace. All right. So, what's the neuroscience behind this verse? Chronic emotional suppression activates the stress response, disconnects you from your body, and leads to what? Burnout. So, practicing truth not just calms, but restores your nervous system regulation. And remember, the whole goal is to what? Restore the nervous system, especially if you grew up in a trauma-ridden environment, right? Because that means that you're saying I want to thrive, but your nervous system is like snatching it every time it comes. Every time opportunity comes, it's snatching it, right? It's telling you that that's not it. It's showing you red flags and all of that because it's in fight or flight or emotional disconnect. And so we want to move the nervous system to safe and social, right? So that we can experience the love, the life, the finances, the experiences. We can travel, we can do things that's outside of the four corners that we experience that we call a neighborhood, or the four walls that we experience that's called a house, or the four relationships that we grew up in, which could have been your mother, your grandmother, your father, your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather, and maybe we can extend that to an aunt or uncle. All right. So neuroscience alignment, peacekeeping or peacemaking, peacemaking aligns with the internal regulation, right? So while peacekeeping often leads to chronic stress, all right? So peacemaking aligns with internal regulation, while peacekeeping often leads to chronic stress. When you suppress your truth to maintain external calm, your nervous system stays in fight or flight, fight, or freeze, even if you seem collected. All right. Chronic emotional labor activates the what? The amygdala. All right. When that happens, it builds cortisol and trains your body to brace, not breathe. So we know when cortisol levels are high in the body, what? It retains a lot of fat. Cortisol levels is like a sign of silent stress, right? So this verse, be the peacemaker, right? It's not just about divinity. It's also about health. right? It's about your nervous system recognizing that it needs to be in a safe space. All right. So chronic emotional labor leads to the amygdala activates the amygdala, which builds cortisol and trains the body to brace, not breathe. And being the peacemaker, you guys, from wholeness, not guilt, activates the what? The ventral vagal regulation system. What is that? The nervous system that states that the nervous system state of authentic connection, safety, and self-expression. That is that social and safe um, place that we want the nervous system to be in. So real peace starts in the nervous system, and it can't be built from guilt. All right. So if you're guilting your way through life, there's no way that you're actually working on healing the nervous system so that you can ultimately experience the life that you desire and deserve. We have to start healing this. Okay. All right. So our promise verse for today, John 14:27, peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives to you. So do not let your hearts be troubled or afraid. All right. So this is John 14:27. I'm reading again. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. So the interpretation here is divine peace doesn't demand perfection or performance, you guys. It invites rest, honesty, and freedom without guilt. All right. So Yahshua Messiah is saying here, the peace I give you isn't performative. It doesn't demand your silence. It doesn't demand your silence or make you earn through what? Through perfection. It's already yours. It comes from my presence in you. Okay. So his contrasting divine peace, he is contrasting divine peace with the world's version of peace, which often asks you to what? Avoid the truth, right? Shrink your voice and be nice to what? Keep other people comfortable. All right. So this verse really invites you to anchor in a peace that doesn't fluctuate with others' emotions. It's actually rooted in your inner clarity and God's unchanging presence. That's in you. All right. And the neuroscience for this is that divine peace reflects what trauma informed neuroscience calls regulation, embodiment, and self trust. Your body does not calm through perfection, but through feeling safe in truth and expression. All right. Your body does not calm through perfection, but it does get calm when it starts to feel safe. All right. And I say this, you're safe. All right. Now I know that you think you're not safe, but you are safe. All right. You are safe. You are safe. You are safe. You are safe. And when I'm saying you're safe, I'm saying because you have everything you need right now, right? As long as you're not in an abusive relationship, okay, that's a little different. But like, and again, we're not talking about mental illness, we're talking about mental health. I'm saying you're safe because you have access to all the tools you need to step out. All right. You know, you're just as safe as the first little pig who built his house of straw. Yep. The world came and it blew his house down. But guess what? He was able to run to his brother's house. Right. And then when it blew down, he was able to run to the one who had the house of bricks. So even there's a community around you that if you activate it, even when you haven't done what you were supposed to do, you're still safe. Like there is people in your life that you can go to that can provide you covering, right? And I always say that God works through people. All right. God works through people. All right. So again, divine peace reflects what trauma informed neuroscience calls regulation, embodiment, and self-truth. Your body calms not through perfection, but through feeling safe and true expression. And when you stop over functioning and start grounding in honesty, guess what? Your body shifts from survival to rest and digest. Rest and digest, the psychological state where healing, restoration, and presence become possible. Listen, God's peace calms the limbic system, right? And allows your prefrontal cortex, which is, you know, the front of your brain, to re-engage, right? And when your free frontal cortex is able to re-engage, guess what? It's restoring your ability to discern, It's restoring your ability to decide, and it's restoring your ability to connect. Okay, to connect with yourself and those around you. So Matthews 5:9, the spiritual insight is you're not called to keep the peace. All right, you're called to make it. And the neuroscience that supports that says that true peace comes from regulated authenticity, not emotional suppression. And then John 14:27, God's peace doesn't require performance, it invites your presence. And the neuroscience to support that verse is regulated nervous system experience inner peace. A regulated nervous system experience inner peace with aligned when aligned with your truth and your safety. All right, I'm going to read that again. Regulated nervous system experiences inner peace when aligned with your truth and your safety. Listen, these verses aren't just about being agreeable, you guys. They are about alignment. They call us back to a version of peace that doesn't cost your voice, all right? Peace that doesn't demand your emotional self erosion, and peace that doesn't make you shrink to be loved, all right? There's an invitation to really choose truth over tension, presence over perfection, and peace over performance, you guys. So I have to ask you at the end of this biblical wisdom, what have you been calling peace that's actually just your silence? All right. All right. So let's put this into action on today. Let's put this in practice. So I want you to identify one place in your peacekeeping one place you're peacekeeping over telling the truth. All right. So identify one place that you're peacekeeping over telling the truth. And then I want you to write a new boundary or truth statement to support that. And then after that, I want you to practice saying it out loud to yourself. All right. So practice saying that new boundary or truth statement. If you need a journal prompt, it's where have I confused being strong with being a silent one? All right. Where have I confused being strong with being silent? And then your affirmation for today: I am not responsible for their feelings. I'm responsible for my freedom. Just whisper that. Let that resonate in your heart and every chakra in your body. If you don't know what chakras are, that your energy feels just like I'm not responsible for their feelings, right? I'm responsible for my freedom. And then your intention for today. And we're talking about adults, all right? I'm not talking about your kids, right? We're talking about adults, all right? And then your intention for today. Today, I choose presence over performance. And then your bonus challenge: speak one honest sentence today you would usually silence to keep the peace. All right. All right. Challenge yourself. Just speak one honest sentence today that you would typically silence, to keep the peace. All right. Listen, if this is hitting deep, imagine a space to really reclaim this type of level of I don't know, insight, intuition, right? Inside of Project Life, where emotional honesty becomes your new rhythm. If you want to join Project Life, you can join Project Life today at SheilaLittle.com/life. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel at I Am Shaping Solutions so you can get all of the notifications. Ring the little bell thing, and then invite a friend to the Elevating Life community. We are 7 months in, you guys. Okay, six series, 7 months. All right, we're trying to grow that community as well. If this session truly resonated with you, okay, you already know what to do. Drop a fire in the chat. Now, I did forget this. I have that call, that challenge, and that charge. So my call to you is I'm asking, what truth have you been silencing for someone else's comfort? I want to challenge you on today. Say it, even if only you say it, even only if you to yourself first. All right. So what truth have you been silencing for someone else's comfort? I want you to say it, even if it's to yourself. All right. And then my charge to you is, if you're not, that you are not a container for conflict avoidance. You are a vessel for what? For the truth. All right. Right now, I gotta ask you, if today's session truly resonated with you. You already know what to do. Put a fire in the chat. Listen, you don't have to manage every room you enter. You are allowed to walk in as yourself. All right. Tomorrow, I will be on for Friday, right? The voice that says you should, rewiring internalized expectations. We're going after this inner guilt script that tells you tells you who you have to be. All right. So here's today's takeaway: a peace that costs you your present isn't peace, it's performance. You guys, remember this: If you can shape it in your mind, you can have it in your life. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I will see you tomorrow for that life lesson. Till later.